Another slow start for Clemson and more frustration for fans. We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 and 97.5 FM, The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And big salute out there to my everydayers. You know who you are. You know how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday, all throughout the week. And if you're new to the show, welcome in. And I hope you enjoy the show. 75% of viewers have not yet subscribed. So make sure you get in there and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Speaking of today's episode, it's brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On the docket today, we're talking about the veteran freshman, the regression of the team, specifically of one group, and the play calling concerns that we have for Clemson as they finished up a win against the Troy Trojans, but a frustrating win. They have improved to 1-1 overall with one loss against LSU and now a win against Troy, but 27-16 is not what a lot of fans were expecting. A lot of people were looking forward to. I mean, the spread was as high as 33.5 points to the home team, the Clemson Tigers, and 31.5 points is what it kind of got down to as we got closer to kickoff. And as I told you on Friday, you shouldn't be shocked by that if you're an everydayer, because I told you I would not take that spread at all, that I would actually take the Troy with the points, because to me, there was nothing to prove to me that this offense has figured it out. We've got to stop confusing ourselves. We've got to stop lying to ourselves. What you see is what you're getting. A duck is a duck is a duck. As you say, you know, if it looks like a duck, if it sounds like a duck, if it acts like a duck, it is in fact a duck. And I'll also say this, if you're a fan of the Morgan Thomas show over on the Roar, you know what I'm going to say here. But when a player shows you who they are, believe them. Don't try to tell yourself that they're going to all of a sudden become a better player by the end of the season. Yeah, they can improve, but when they show you who they are, believe that that's who they are. And what we're seeing now is, in fact, that there's a lot of players on this Clemson team that they're not bad players. I'm not saying they're bad players at all. They're in fact probably better players than most in the country at their position. But are they able to compete, and especially compete as a group against the best of the best in college football? What we're seeing is, and what they're showing us, not opinions, but what we're seeing on the field is that they just can't do it, you know, and they have reached a certain level of talent. Maybe they've reached a certain level of ability, that this is what we're seeing. Now, could they improve? Yeah, I mean, you could improve over time to try to maximize what you're really seeing. Maybe there's a little bit of a gap there, but there's also a lot of regression as well. Early boos from the home crowd. Dabo Swinney said that he would have been booing too as well, because there is a standard. Well, we know that the best is the standard. And a lot of fans over the past couple of years have reminded me that it seems as if the best is the standard, seems to be just try your best, and not so much what we remember, the best of the standard. Best is the standard, meaning like be excellent at what you are able to do at your position. And so that excellence and accountability there seems to be walking away a little bit, and we don't know where it's gone, right? There's boos from the crowd early on. There was a rain delay, a lightning delay, and then the second half, they settled in. So can this team show us that they can settle in? Yes. But the biggest thing is, as Dabo mentioned, if the worst player is your best player in Cade Klubnik, then he'll take that. Well, I don't think that you're going to take that for very long, to be honest with you, because you're going to take that as long as you have one loss, but you're not going to take that if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 losses. There gets to a point where everyone has what I say, a loss threshold, a losing threshold. There are a lot of fans that feel like Dabo has so much equity, or the players on the team have so much equity. Losing one game, no big deal. For most of the Clemson fans out there, no big deal. Losing one ACC game, extremely frustrating, but still okay. Losing 2, that's when you start to say, I don't like this. Not making it to the ACC championship game, Clemson fans definitely don't like that. If they don't make it to the ACC championship game and they don't make it to the playoffs, then Clemson fans get extremely frustrated from there. But the equity that Dabo Swinney has built is strong, and it is just, and it is earned. The respect is earned from the fan base. Even if he doesn't, it would take multiple bad years from Dabo and his staff and his players to get to a point where you're extremely frustrated beyond the point of repair. But in this season specifically, there is a lot of frustrations around the offense because, to be honest with you, fans expected a Heisman Trophy candidate. We were hyped on a Heisman Trophy candidate. Dabo Swinney said, hey, the media is going to be against Cade in 2024, and now Cade's going to have to deal with the media being with him. Well, the media was only with him preseason, because now that we're in the season, we've all turned against him again. And to be honest with you, it's because of the inconsistencies you're consistently seeing. So the only thing that's really consistent with Cade is that you don't really know what you're getting with Cade. And it's hard. If I was Garrett Riley, it would be hard to figure out how you're going to game plan around a guy who you don't know what you're going to get. And so what we expected from the veteran, it seems as if there's a lot of regression there from the veteran quarterback, now more acting with these rookie mistakes. Cade's stat line, 18 for 24, 196, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The interception was kind of, hit off of a guy's hand. He went up and it happened to be right at the 2-yard line, and defensive lineman caught it and got in there. But started to look a little bit better as the game went on, but early mistakes and this team starting out with the early frustrations are really getting to the point where Clemson fans just don't even really want to deal with this right now. I mean, it is another year of just high expectations not being met, and maybe it's our fault for having such high expectations. But what we're seeing is, and this is not just me, the TikToker, which I don't do TikTok, or me, the social media guy, or me, the fan, but these are experts in their field, former players saying these things about Cade. One, he's consistently late on his throws. He's not getting the ball out on time. Well, if you're not getting the ball out on time, how do you expect your wide receivers like TJ Moore to be able to make catches? They're behind you. They're not in stride. A lot of times they're not on time. So that way the defender has the ability to break it up. I mean, there's times where wide receivers are in positions where they could get injured. And so there's a lot of problems with not being on time. The frustration from that is that this is his senior year. He understands Garrett Riley's scheme and his playbook and his style, and he should have not. The timing should be the least possible thing. He's got wide receivers that he's had with him for 2 or 3 years now. The timing part should be no concern. Also, missed reads. This is not just me. Again, these are experts talking about this. Missed reads, passing up open players because either he's locking in on a player before the snap happens, or he's bailing from a player before the play actually develops. And so there were multiple times against LSU, multiple times against Troy, where players are getting passed up, and they could potentially be touchdown plays that are getting passed up because Cade's just not hanging on long enough. and giving his reads time to develop. Bad decision making as well. We're seeing, scrambling where he doesn't need to scramble. We're seeing staying in the pocket when he does stay in the pocket, he's picking one wide receiver and not really going through progressions. Or when he does go through progressions, he goes through them too quickly. The fact of the matter is that Clemson needed and needs Cade to elevate his game in his final season with the Tigers. These are not mistakes that you would expect from a freshman. He is a senior. Fans, I can understand why they would be booing, because the patience level is very thin. The margin of error is getting even thinner. We know that this schedule is more difficult than past, so Clemson cannot afford, if they want to go deep into the postseason, cannot afford to continue to make mistakes that you would expect to see from someone who just got into college football. Cade's not just slowing down the offense. His slow reads are just actively hurting drives and hurting the ability to get points on the scoreboard. Now, there's a few things that I was thinking about what other things could be causing that, because it's not all Cade's fault. And I know you're going to say, if you just listen to this one segment, you're going to be like, Morgan says nothing but bad things about Cade. And that if you just listen to one segment, that would be true for you. But if you listen to segment 2 and 3, I'll go into some other reasons why I think this is a bigger problem than just one person. Because, if you've been watching this game and this team, there's more than just one thing going on. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts to your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a project fast? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And this episode is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw an amazing deal and a ton of amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football game for as low as $25. When I looked at the Clemson game, even the big game out there, you could get them for really, really inexpensive. And honestly, it's super fast. I love the zone deals because you can see where their hot deals are right now and what zones are getting you the best bang for your buck. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, here's the deal. I know that, again, you're my everydayers, so you're still with me. You understand that Cade being the general, being the quarterback, being the senior, being in an offense that he's been in for multiple years now, That's where the frustration lies, number one. Also, because he's so inconsistent, I give Garrett Riley a couple of passes here and there because, what can you really do as a play caller when your offensive general out there is unpredictable as Cade is, or when he misses wide open players? If the play calling was terrible, there wouldn't be wide open players. Well, Morgan, if you say, Morgan, these guys aren't getting open. No, we have a lot of film from the first two games of guys wide open that are never seen. And so that's where the frustration comes into play. The fact of the matter is that there are too many veterans on this offensive line to look this sloppy. I'm thinking about the left tackle, lots of film where he looks sloppy. I'm thinking about the right tackle, sloppy. Left guard, sloppy. Right guard, sloppy. Center, honestly, I'd probably say the center is probably doing the best of all of them. I haven't, off the top of my head, seen a ton of bad plays from him. But when you look at the play, you were expecting going into this season 4 out of 5 returning starters, and you're talking about guys who have been on this team for multiple years, who have hundreds and hundreds of snaps under their belts. They're too veteran to look this sloppy. They understand the game plan. They've had a coach for 2 years now. They understand Garrett Riley. And I don't get why we're still seeing players look like they don't know what they're doing or they don't know how to play together. The good thing is, though, we were sold on dirt raid. We were sold on dirt raid from Garrett Riley, and we really didn't see it against LSU. They forgot about the run. Inexcusable that they forgot about the run. But at the end of the day, Garrett Riley went back to the run against Troy. Unfortunately, it's still extremely frustrating why we have to do this. And it seems as if you forgot what your own game plan was as an offensive coordinator. But we're looking at, you're supposed to be dirt raid. Well, what does dirt raid mean? It means that you're not just all the time airing the ball out and not running the ball. It means that you are running the ball first and you are building off of your run game, and that will open up a play action. That will open up the deep balls and the explosive plays. And we did see that against Troy in the second half, that this team continued to commit to the run. The same thing that LSU did. Continue to commit to the run. Even if it only nets you 1 yard, you still go after it because you have to keep the defense honest. Now, the good thing is that Clemson's offensive line only allowed 1 sack against Troy, but they're still allowing more than you would like on pressuring the quarterback. They're still having more than you would like missed blocks. And those missed blocks, those pressures don't show up as much in the stats. Run blocking, still a huge concern. Linemen going to the second level. Again, this is not me. This is other experts that are out there watching it. Former players out there telling you what's going on. They're moving up to the second level too fast. They're leaving defenders wide open, which are defenders that they should be keying on for that specific play or for the direction of the play. Veteran players blocking no one when they need to be latched onto someone on specific downs and key plays, and specifically key plays to their side. You'll see a run to the right-hand side, and the blockers on the right side, there might be a right guard that never touches anybody. So the run blocking still has a lot of errors. The pass blocking still has a lot of issues. Left guard, there was a situation where the left guard, Clemson had a true freshman left tackle out there, and the left guard's not helping out the left tackle. It goes back to the same thing with having the true freshman running back out there against LSU. Why does this team not understand that they need to protect their guys that don't have as much experience? Do they not know the players that are out on the field? Sometimes I wonder what's going on with player rotation, and why aren't they more aware of who's on the field at what times? There's sometimes where you see third down and the starters aren't on the field on third down. It doesn't make any. They were on the field for first and second down. They get off the field on third down, one of the more critical downs. It really doesn't make sense sometimes, the rotations that's out there. Now, they had to put a left tackle in this game against Troy because Tristan Lee was injured for the game. But when you have a freshman left tackle out there, you ought to know you shouldn't leave him there by himself all the time. You have to be aware of that as a left guard, and you have to be aware of that as the coach for the offensive line and for the offensive coordinator. It's just very interesting to me how they don't seem to understand their personnel as well as they should. They don't seem to understand, how to minimize their weaknesses, right? Avoid displaying the weaknesses. We're still seeing a lot of glaring weaknesses. It's up to the offensive coordinator and the staff to figure out how to hide those weaknesses as best as possible. Even on maximum protection plays, blitzes are it's almost like it's calculus out there. It's almost like it's trigonometry out there. The linebacker blitzes seem to be just sending the offensive lineman for a loop. I don't understand it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it matters the most because the offensive line and the line of scrimmage helps everyone else out. They're not all by themselves. They're helping the offense all together, not just themselves and not just the running back, but the quarterback. Cade's footwork, Cade's timing, a lot of that could be attributed to a shaky offensive line. If you have both together, if Cade's not feeling very confident and the offensive line's not doing anything to help him out, then disaster. That's what happens. So Cade can improve. We've seen him play better than this. Can he win the biggest games of all? We have no proof of that. But Cade can be better than what we're seeing right now. We do have proof of that. The offensive line should be able to be better than what we see right now. We do have proof of that from last season. So, but both of them have to improve together. If Cade improves and the offensive line doesn't improve, Cade's going to have a much shorter ceiling with the protection the way it's doing. The protection gets better, but Cade still is finicky in the pocket. Then the offense together still going to have a much lower ceiling. And when I mean lower ceiling, I mean losing more games. I mean not getting to as many wins as you're used to under Dabo Swinney. But at the end of the day, it's not just Cade, and it starts with Cade, in my opinion. But it's not just Cade. This group of offensive linemen has way too much experience to keep making these rookie mistakes and regressing. We never in a million years would expect the most returning production in college football, the most veteran team in college football, to look as uncomfortable, as unprepared as they look right now. Either the coaching isn't figuring it out or the players aren't executing. I don't get paid to figure out that actual answer. But what I do know is that it doesn't look like good football, And if it looked like good football, then I would be the only one complaining. But I'm sure of you that I'm not the only one complaining and frustrated with what's going on. And fans should be frustrated. And Dabo Swinney has said, hey, write all the bad stuff. Well, I'm not going to write bad stuff just to write bad stuff. I don't really like to write at all. That's why I'm talking. But it's not about writing just to write bad stuff. It's about being honest. It's about saying what you see. And what you see is a team that is not playing as well as their peers. I'm not saying that you have to be as good as a Trevor Lawrence-led team or a Deshaun Watson-led team. But what I'm saying is Clemson has an expectation and a standard to be one of the best teams in the ACC, one of the best teams in college football. Can you honestly say that you're seeing a product that is the best team in college football or one of the top 10 best teams in college football? No, it is not. Can you say to yourself that this is a top team in the ACC right now? No. Honestly, going into this Georgia Tech game, how much confidence do you have that they would even win this away game? It was already a potential trap game, and now they've started off on such a slow foot, on the wrong foot, that now you're worried and concerned about even winning this game, not just a trap game and a trip up game and a mistake game, but a game that they won't be able to compete with? That's the concern now. This team did a 180, and I don't understand why. And the biggest concern to me is that maybe, just maybe, those people inside the building don't really know why either. Because if you knew why, it'd be an easy fix, right? Either something's not clicking, but they've got to figure it out. It's still a long season, but this weekend starts ACC play on the road in Atlanta, and the Yellow Jackets are not going to just be an easy win for the Tigers. All right, we're going to finish up the show, segment 3, talking about Garrett Riley's play calling right here on Locked on Clemson. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code Locked On, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head over to thegamecaps.com, thegamecaps.com, to grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code Locked On for exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. And you can see this hat right here is part of the game, and you can get this over on their website. I really enjoy it. You've seen the white one that I have. You've seen this orange one, and they fit extremely comfortable. So go check them out today, thegamecaps.com. All right, we're going to finish up the show talking about Garrett Riley and his play calling. And for the everydayers out there, thank you so much for hanging with me here. Segment 3. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me over on X at the Morgan T Show so you can chat and gripe with me throughout the college football season over on X. But it's a culmination of a few different things, right? It's a culmination of frustration with Cade Klubnik, and also resetting expectations from Cade. It's a part of frustration of the offensive line and what we talked about in segment 2. But it's also play calling. Fans are also frustrated with the game plan in general. Garrett Riley's play calling from the beginning of this season has been suspect, to say the least. The first half produced just 3 points and 114 total yards, 3 points against Troy. The second half was a surge of 17 points in the third quarter after they finally shifted to a heavier run game. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, again, why this team continues to have early struggles. You would think this team has scripted plays to begin with. A lot of people say that teams come out with their game plan, scripted plays to begin the game, and those seem like the worst ones. So what is going on there? And some people have texted me and said, Morgan, Tom Allen's doing pretty good up in the box. Maybe Garrett Riley needs to get up in the box. I don't know. Hey, remember when Clemson was a national championship team? They had one guy in the box, Tony Elliott. They had one guy on the field, and Jeff Scott. There could be something to that. You need to have somebody that has a pulse of the field, but you also need to have somebody that's up top that can see things. Who is it that's up top for Clemson right now that is seeing these things? I don't understand what's going on, but I will tell you this. Again, the product on the field is frustrating to watch. Garrett Riley didn't account for some matchups early on in the game, and he had certain players doing things that kind of made your head scratch. Cade Klubnik throwing into areas that didn't seem to be schemed properly and were really kind of going against what the defense was showing you. Failing to adjust as well. Against LSU, the adjustments seemed to be very slow. Again, starting out slow again versus Troy. Finally, though, they really said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to lean on Adam Randall, which, fans who don't make a ton of money who give more money than they make from Clemson, have been demanding, hey, let's get back to the run game. Can't figure out much until you get back to the run game first. And also, when you have a run game that you can trust, it kind of keeps the momentum going. It gets you in third and shorts. It gets you in a bit more manageable situations. And your offensive linemen tend to like to beat up guys in the run blocking as well. And they don't always like to sit back and pass block situations. So when Clemson began to lean on Adam Randall, 21 carries, 112 yards, 1 touchdown, it helped relax the offense out, simplified some things, and other things started to click a little bit better. What I've said before is Clemson, to me, needs to be that team that can figure out, their staff needs to figure out how they're going to minimize the weaknesses. Can you tell me what LSU's weaknesses are on offense after the first game that you saw with them? Can you tell me what the weaknesses are on the offense for LSU? It's hard to say. It is really hard to say because Joe Sloan was able to scheme in a way that didn't make anything glaring that they had any problems. Now, they do have problems. They do have concerns, but it was hard to pinpoint those things out. I'm not saying that Clemson can't have problems, can't have concerns, can't have areas of weakness, but it's up to the play caller to tailor the game plan in a way to where the offensive line is not exposed, to where the quarterback is not exposed, and to where the wide receivers can get open quickly and effectively. Fans expect this from Dabo Swinney. They expect this from Garrett Riley and from Cade Klubnik and from the offensive line and the wide receivers. You don't have to be extremely exotic to be creative. You don't have to be all, when you think about LSU, okay, I go back and I think, there are a lot of times they ran the same play, and if it's broke, don't fix it, as my dad always says, as your dad probably says too. Sometimes it's like Clemson has one good play and it's like, okay, we can't use that play anymore. We used it once and we can never use that play again. But Garrett Riley needs to figure out how he's going to scheme things to get this team ready out the gate, to get this team built around a run game, and to help simplify what Cade has to do to where he's not panicking and doesn't know where to go. It seems as if Cade, the more that they're putting on him, the more he's regressing back. So they've got to figure something out. I hate to say this again for another year now under another offensive coordinator, but we kind of feel like a broken record here. Under Tony Elliott, just need to simplify it for DJ. Under Brandon Streeter, we just need to simplify it for DJ. Now under Garrett Riley, we need to simplify it for Cade. It gets to a point where it kind of seems like a broken record because you're saying the same things over and over and over. But the biggest thing is Cade's got to figure out who his true playmakers are. Maybe, just maybe, he relied way too much on Antonio Williams because ever since Antonio Williams hasn't been around, Cade's gotten worse. And shame on Cade and shame on this staff for focusing around one player to be the catalyst for the entire offense. And if that's the case, then shame on them because they have too many other playmakers to be Antonio Williams or bust. And we really didn't get a ton of Antonio Williams until he got injured. And now he's going to be dealing with a hamstring thing that, those things linger. So hamstrings can stick around and that means he won't be on the field as much. So they got to figure something else out. Thankfully, they have some bright spots with Bryant Wesco. They have some bright spots with Tyler Brown. And TJ Moore, I think, will work out his way out of it. But it's not always drops for him. Sometimes I'm seeing these plays to TJ Moore, and they are bang-bang plays, or they're just bad throws. But if they're good throws, then sometimes the defender is right on him. Now, I get it. He's talented enough that he needs to pull some things down, and he did drop a few. But at the end of the day, it's not just one thing. It's the offense as a whole. That's frustrating everyone. Again, it's not just one player. It's not just one group. And it's not just one play. We have 2 games now against 2 drastically different levels of competition where the team seems to be not able to figure it out. So they've got to figure something out on offense, or else it's going to be a long season because you're going to Atlanta against a team. When you think about Haynes King, what do you think about Haynes King when I say his name? Well, you think about a guy who understands his strengths and weaknesses and knows his limitations. When you think about their running game and Georgia Tech, these guys are over 500 yards per game. Clemson is struggling to get to 300. If Georgia Tech does not have a lot of penalties and a lot of turnovers, which is what Clemson really banked on against Troy, then I'm concerned about the game on Saturday. I really am. And I probably won't pick Clemson, in the spread either, because they haven't done enough on offense to figure it out. Maybe they prove me wrong. You can come back and say, I told you so, Morgan. And I'd love to say I told you so because I'm a fan of the team. I want the team to do well. But again, we have to call a duck as a duck as a duck. And this offense is a duck right now. We don't like it. We don't like it. And really, they have all the pieces around them. I said it in the preseason. They have all the pieces around them to be a great offense, but they're just not doing it again. So a lot of things. Now, how do they fix it? But I'm not going to leave you. Well, I'm going to leave you with some final thoughts on how do they fix it. One, I think you got to go back to basics with Cade. You got to simplify it. I know that sounds dumb to say. I know it's frustrating to say, but Cade has regressed right now. He's not the Cade of old, and maybe we gave it too much props for a half against Texas on Cade. But we got to go back and say, how do we make him as comfortable as possible? Two, they got to commit to the run game. They got to be dirt raid. They got to be Adam Randall first. I think that will help relieve a lot of the pain from the quarterback as well. Offensive line, especially on the left side of the offensive line, they've got to communicate better. They've got to figure out a way to work as a unit. We mentioned this last week, not 5 nickels, 25 cents. And they've got to get their playmakers out there. It can't just be a team about Antonio Williams or even Bryant Wesco. They've got to figure out how to get TJ Moore back into it and snapping out of some of these frustrating pass blocks or contested passes that he's not bringing in. You've got to be able to get your best players confident. And that's what the beginning of the season is, because they need to start rolling as the season gets more difficult. Clemson got the win against Troy, but they still have a lot of questions and a lot of things to clean up. If the mistakes continue, then they're just not going to reach their full potential. They have to make the adjustments now. And it's going to be tough on a road game against Georgia Tech. But whatever they got to do, they got to work through it. And they got to take it one game at a time. Maybe looking forward to the Heisman, maybe looking forward to the playoffs was just too much expectations on the team. Let's go back to week by week and see if this team can improve from there. All right. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. This is another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch Locked On College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And a little bit of a hint, go check it out on Fire TV this week, because I'm going to give you some thoughts on how Clemson can beat Georgia Tech this week. I'm going to be on College Football Kickoff. I'm pretty excited about it. And as always, Tiger fans, hey, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow and at the top of the hill.